is up? Yee! We getting it, boy.
What's good? You know who it is. It's your boy, Jay in the Bay.
Your baller back again. Smells like football season.
Yo! Whoa, whoa!
Faithful Niner Empire. What's good? It's your boy, Jay in the Bay. How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to another Straight Out of the Bay show. Amin will be coming in as soon as he is ready. But of course, we have Celts Chronicles. We have Bay Area Baller. We appreciate everyone tuning into the stream tonight. Fellas, we don't have to worry about any more undefeated talk with our 49ers. I would love to get you guys' general thoughts about the game, what you thought. But first, how was you guys' weekend? Let me know. Celts, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good, man. Hey, we got so used to saying Victory Monday. It's like, it's a humbling Monday. But at the same time, like with my life and everything, things are great, man. To be honest, I'm kind of glad. We'll get into it. But hey, everything is good besides the loss. I mean, hey, fantasy is going well, man. So I'm proud about that.
Yeah, Celts whooped my butt this week. I think he took first place from me as well. So shout out to you, Rich. I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here talking ball. I mean, I was shocked about how this game played out, and I'm ready to pick your guys' brains about this loss.
Absolutely. And this is an interactive show. Love to hear from the chat. When we talk about these topics, love to hear the chat's input and how they felt about the Niners game. Huge shout out. We have Daniel in the building. We have Frank in the building. And we also have Roberto. What's good? Evening, gents. Hopefully all is well. Let's kick it off with the general thoughts about the game. We don't have to get into too much specifics. Of course, we'll get into that. But as E mentioned, this was a surprising loss for the 49ers. I mean, when you look at how we played, honestly, if you look at how we played, we didn't really deserve to win the game, you could say. I mean, there was the quarterback play on both sides was terrible. Hella penalties. What was like 26 penalties over 200 yards. It was a mess of a game. The weather had something to do with it. There was some calls that didn't go in our favor, but I think this was a wake-up call for the Niners. I mean, you go into somebody else's house and you try to start a scuffle. I mean, Debo, I don't understand what are you doing? Who do you think you are, Debo said? We haven't won anything. Like, yeah, we won 5 games, but it's almost like you're poking the bear. And I'm talking in regards to the pregame scuffle. I'm sure everyone saw it by now, but I'm glad we got this loss under our belts. It's funny because I mentioned last week's show. I don't want to see the Niners win, 42 to 20 every game. I want to see them go through some adversity. I want to see, Moody struggle. I want to see him have to fight through that adversity. I don't want to see them face adversity the first time in the playoffs. I want it to be in the regular season. And we saw that. Things didn't go our way. We had injuries. We'll get into all that. But I'm glad we got this under our belt. We don't have to worry about the undefeated talk. And we got some work to do. We have some self-reflection to do. And that's what I came off of this game. Self-reflection. We got some work to do. What were your thoughts, Bay Area Baller?
This is how I typically envision an AFC opponent. Like when you're playing that AFC North, I feel it's going to be a wet, cold, physical, kind of grinded out game. That's my mentality anytime I'm facing an AFC North opponent, especially in their stadium. And that's exactly what it is. there's a lot of blame that I know we're gonna talk about, who's to blame. But I thought the offensive miscues were just way too steep. There was too many of them to overcome. The penalties. I had went back and looked at my notes. Check out these drives where the Niners fell behind the chains. Okay, second offensive drive, it was 2nd and 23. That was after a bad screen and a penalty. Third drive, they had converted on 3rd and 3, but no, Spencer Burford, hands to the face. Instead of a conversion, it's 3rd and 15. Excuse me, 3rd and 13. The 5th offensive drive, they took a delay of game. It's 3rd and 15. The 7th drive, it's 2nd and 20 after a sack. It was just too many offensive miscues, penalties. There was a 1st and 25. Like, come on. How are you supposed to overcome 1st and 25? That was a Trent hold and another. It was just so many penalties. It was hard to keep track of. But they've set themselves up so far behind on down and distance. They couldn't overcome it. Not to mention, BA dropped that deep post. He had a couple drops that I saw. Purdy missed an open CMC. There was just so many miscues. Obviously, the missed field goals. And then McCaffrey had that dominant opening drive, right, fellas? I'm feeling good. We stop him. We get a touchdown. I'm pumped up. And after that, McCaffrey had 10 carries for 13 yards. Other than that 30-yard run that he dished out on that opening drive, 10 carries, 13 yards. So just I'm putting this one on the offense and the miscues because just the totality of this offense, it was lackluster yesterday.
Real talk, real talk. Hey, man, there were so many things that happened in this game that we haven't seen. Whether it was shooting yourself in the foot, penalties you're talking about, Brock Purdy being off, Ayuk being off, Shanahan being off. It just felt like another thing that I have not heard anywhere yet, and I thought about this today. And I haven't watched a ton of anybody's reactions on anything, but maybe we got comfortable being at home. We were at home for what, 3 straight weeks, and then it's our first time on the road again. It was our first time on the road again, and hey, those things happen. And does anybody else notice that it seems kind of like that Browns game just had the feeling, like you were kind of saying a little bit, Baller, was just that East Coast. It had the Eagles feel to it. There was the Eagles, just the gloominess, just the time of it, just everything had. And I feel like anytime, even if I remember Washington when it was raining a few years back, we won that game. Nick Bosa sliding on the ground, but it feels like Kyle, almost whenever he expects a dogfight or kind of like a game where it's like kind of like that, kind of gloomy, it feels like he kind of curls up. It feels like he kind of curls up to the moment. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not, but it didn't feel, just the whole feeling from players to coaches, the whole surrounding of it just didn't feel right. But hey, we started out amazing. Go right down the field, touchdown. They get the ball, interception, Fred Warner. I'm like, okay, we're rolling. Hey, this can be a repeat of the Cowboys right here, and we got humbled, man. It's the trenches. Jay and the Bay is always talking about the trenches. We got lightweight manhandled, but the blame could go so many different directions: weather, road, this, that, and then on top of it, we still have a chance to win the game with Brock Purdy's worst game and just all the different kind of adversities you would want to face. And then I never felt like we were going to lose that game still. And then when they did go up, a little part of me, I don't know what's happening to me growing up, a little part of me wanted the Browns to go up. I wanted to see Purdy make a comeback. I wanted to see the dramatic. I wanted to see what he would do in that situation. We got a glimpse of it versus the Raiders last year. But hey, man, it's the NFL. You could get humbled. The very best team could lose to the very worst team in the NFL. The NFL is different. There's 22 moving pieces. There's a lot of decisions being made. It's not like basketball, but it can happen in basketball as well, you know. And hey, man, I'm glad we lost. It had a feeling like we lost in the playoffs because we've been rolling, man. You know, the last time we have lost was the NFC championship game. But you don't lose for so long, and Purdy's never lost a regular season game in the NFL. So I think it was a good timing. I think we're going to lose maybe another game or two. Um, but I think it was a good timing to get that first one out the way, just before it created more weight, I guess.
I was going to say, great minds think alike. I was thinking the same thing. I wanted to see Purdy play from behind, will the team down the field. We got a penalty that was in our favor, but he showed that he could do that. That's what I wanted to see. Moody had a chance to win the game with the field goal kick. I want to see that in the regular season. I don't want to see his first, money kick or winning kick on the line to be in the playoffs. I want to see it in the regular season. He needs to get those calluses for him, Moody, on his foot. So that way he knows what that feeling is like, what that pressure is like in the moment, on the road, a hostile environment. Like, he's got to feel that now. So I think it's great that obviously we want the team to win every game. Yeah. But that's the only way you build character in those moments when everything's out on the line, you're down, you really have to make plays. And I want to see that now. And I think we got a chance to see that, and we know what we need to work on. We have Frank and Bay Area Throwbacks in the building. What's good? Roberto has an interesting comment. He says, what is worrisome? The defense struggled to stop the run. I thought they did solid the first 3 quarters. I think the Browns obviously had some big runs in the fourth. And then he says on the number of missed tackles. Yeah, I think we had 9 missed tackles in the game, which definitely is something we need to work on.
Well, I think those two things go hand in hand, right? If you're missing tackles, then it's going to be tougher to stop the run.
Yeah,
on that one, Berto.
Yeah, and he says once they lost Debo and CMC, the offense was crippled. I saw a crazy stat. Our first drive, I think it was like 7 plays, 75 yards, and then like the next 30 plays, we had a total of like 85 yards. Like it was just crazy. Debo basically got hurt. We'll get into the injuries, but Debo got hurt like on the first play. Where he took that jet sweep around the corner. Basically, they said that he was losing feeling in his shoulder as the plays progressed. He only ended up playing like 8 snaps. And then we were without CMC basically the entire second half. So, Shanahan definitely has to pivot to other playmakers, like Kittle only having 1 catch, 2 targets. Like, what's up with that? Not running with Jordan Mason when he had 5 carries. He looked good. Mitchell doesn't have it. I'm not saying he's a bum. He's dumb, but he's just not there yet. He's not ready. They need to feed Jordan Mason, I think, a little bit more, especially the fourth quarter. I think we had the ball, 3 minutes left, 3 straight passing plays. Obviously, if we would have been able to convert, no one's talking about it, but force Cleveland to use their timeouts. Just certain small things like that Shanahan should know by now. Barrier Throwback says Purdy and BI definitely did not, I think he meant to say did not have a good connection. Purdy made a few bad throws to him, and Ayuk missed some catchable balls by Purdy. Absolutely. We have Don in the building. What's good? Appreciate you coming into the building tonight, Don. Hope all is well. And Bay Area Throwbacks agrees. Definitely wish they would have started going to Kittle. I agree. I don't know why we didn't, especially when CMC and Debo are out. The connection between Ayuk and Purdy, it just wasn't clear. They weren't connecting. They weren't on the same page. Purdy was throwing behind them, throwing high, and yeah, just wasn't a solid connection. And it's weird because we haven't seen that all year. They've been pretty excellent all year, Purdy and Ayuk. Let's talk about the 49ers injuries real quick, because obviously that was a big factor in the game. We saw Debo go out, CMC, Trent got hurt, I think, on the second offensive drive after the interception. So there were some updates on Debo's shoulder. Basically, he's day-to-day, and his week 7 status against Minnesota is still up in the air. So that's just something we'll have to monitor throughout the rest of the week. Christian McCaffrey, he's got the oblique/rib. Looks like he had, I think when this report came out a few hours ago, McCaffrey was getting an MRI, so they don't know the severity of his injury. He did try to go back out, but it was one play, and then he went back to the locker room. So McCaffrey is listed as day-to-day with the rib oblique. Trent Williams, the big silverback, toughed it out. We saw that he kind of got rolled up on that second offensive drive. He's got a ankle sprain. It's not a high ankle sprain, so that's the good thing. But he's also day-to-day. We'll see what Trent Williams does the rest of the week. Dre Greenlaw, he didn't play. Obviously, he missed the game due to the hamstring injury, but he should be back at practice. That's the expectation for Dre Greenlaw. George Odom, quad contusion. He suffered that in Sunday's loss, and he's considered day-to-day. So hopefully we'll have those guys for the Monday night game against the Minnesota Vikings. I want to talk about something real quick. Obviously Moody was perfect, this entire season. We're talking about the regular season, and, he struggled in yesterday's game. So I would love to hear you guys' opinion, the chat. Is it time to send a care package to RG? And if you guys don't know RG, I'm talking about Robbie Gould. Should we send a care package? I don't know. So I don't know. I think he's used to be with the Chicago Bears. Maybe he wants some Chicago tourist things. I don't know. But should we, come to Robbie Gould on our knees and beg and plead for Robbie Gould to come back? Obviously, he wanted a salary that the 49ers weren't interested in paying, so we moved on with Moody. But is it time, Faithful, that we plead and beg Robbie Gould to come back to the Niners? I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. What you think, E?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm going to give Jake Moody another opportunity. I'm going to keep rolling him out there. But I will say it's a relatively short leash, fellas. Like if he misses another game winner, then I'm probably calling up Robbie. But you know what? I'm not going to let him burn us. Like, I'm not overpaying Robbie Gould. I know we got some cap space, but I'm not doing nothing crazy because we know what Robbie is. Inside of 40, he's pretty automatic, but he's not going to give you anything past 54. So I'm rolling with Moody. I'm going to give him another opportunity, but if he misses another big kick or kicks, then this is a win now team. This is a team with championship aspirations. So you can't have a shaky kicker, because what we saw transpire against the Browns, and it wasn't only the game winner, but there was that 54-yarder right before halftime, which that should not have been a 54-yarder. We needed to get some more yards and bring that one closer to get that in a better range. I was trying to see.
Are you talking about the potential game winner, or
no, the first miss?
Okay,
the first, because Moody missed two.
Yeah,
one was right before half, if I'm not mistaken. And anyway, I'm giving Moody one more shot. If he misses another game winner, then I'm calling up Robbie.
What say you, Kelts?
It's crazy. I'm watching Sunday Night Football last night, and Bass. I'm watching Bass kind of closely because I believe Baller has him on a fantasy team. And what does Bass do? It was almost identical to what Jake Moody did. He missed two to the right, almost from the same spot. Nice. It's just, and I believe Bass was perfect on the year.
Bass is a good kicker. He's a good kicker.
So I'm sitting there looking at last night, like, it could just happen to anybody, and it has happened to everybody. There's never been a kicker that's made them all. You would love to see a rookie kicker hit those. You know what I'm saying? Especially where we drafted him, especially versus the Browns, because my draft crush the whole time was Dawan Jones, and Dawan is over there, doing work versus Nick Bosa. And I'm just sitting there just kind of like, there was a lot of feelings for me personally, just who I wanted to be drafted there. But should we be hitting up Robbie Gould? I think once you make your bed, you lay in it. I mean, there's no going back. And if I were to look at it through the lens of a Kyle Shanahan and whatnot, I feel like there's no going back to Robbie Gould. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is. I could see them maybe going to. It's hard. I feel like you got to keep Moody, especially where you drafted him. Just moving up, especially this quick. Absolutely not this quick. But like Baller said, if you do start missing in high pressure moments, that could be the difference of losing the Super Bowl. We've seen Tom Brady probably win 4 or 5 Super Bowls off of Vinatieri, driving it down, getting the field goal. So it is absolutely important. Like for me personally, I want to see the rookie have more opportunity. And then I think for the 49ers, I think they're feeling the same way about it. And damn it, I think the Cowboys are about to win. But, I'm always rooting for them to lose. My bad to get off topic with that. But
it's all good. Hey, we appreciate everyone that's in the stream right now. I know there's probably multiple Niner YouTubers on doing the damn thing. We appreciate everyone that's tuning in now. Obviously, there's the end of the Monday Night Football game, but we appreciate everyone that's tuning in. Feel free to hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to all our channels if possible. The links are in the description. We got Blue True in the building. What's good? Blue True says we need to go to Robbie Gould.
And if you do, what I was going to add was I don't want to cut Jake Moody. I don't want to cut him. If you did want to bring in Robbie, you're coming up with some kind of phantom injury. They already did it with Cam Latu. I don't know if that's a phantom injury, but there's ways to kind of sneak guys onto the IR and open up a spot.
If Moody, and obviously, no one wants injuries. If Moody had a season-ending injury, then go to Robbie G. Absolutely. But if Moody's healthy, he has to go through these growing pains. It's the only way he gets better. That's the only way he's like, okay, I felt this pressure before. Just like anything you do at a lower level, and then you go up to the professional level, it's going to be a little bit different. The pressure is going to be more intense. He's got to feel that. He's got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the only way you do that is in these pressure type situations. So benching him, or it's not going to really do anything for him. He's got to get better. We drafted him, first kicker in the draft. He's got to take his lumps, and he was perfect, this regular season. He was perfect. But he just struggled, and that's just going to happen. I know we live in a society where we want everything right away. We've got to draft these guys, and they all have to be perfect. They don't make any mistakes, and that's just not reality. So I say we stick with Moody, unless he's missing multiple kicks, as Barry Baller said, or if he sustains a season-long injury, then I think we go to Robbie. But other than that, we're not sending no care package to Robbie, and there's no way in hell Kyle Shanahan and Lynch are going to say, Robbie, will you please come back to us? There's no way in hell they're doing that. I just don't see them doing that. But moving on, what should we address now? Let's go into some of the 49ers miscues. I would love to hear from the chat. What were some of the things that prevented us from winning the game yesterday? I know Roberto says, the penalties on both sides. He says the penalty on Gipp for a perfect hit was trash. It was 3rd and 13, would have been 4th down. That contributed to the loss. Absolutely. You could even say the call on Mooney Ward. That was also on, I believe that was also on 3rd down as well, where they called him for holding, which I think it was a ticky-tack call. But one of the biggest ones was at the end of the first half. I don't see how they felt that PJ, attempted a pass on that play. He's getting tackled by 2 people, and it looked to me like it was a fumble. Obviously, that could have turned the game. At least the bare minimum, the Niners get possession of the ball. Maybe Bosa would have ran it in for a touchdown. I know he did later, but I think that was a huge call. Just one other miscue I just want to mention. I think the inability to get George Kittle involved in the game. Clearly, we know he's a hell of a blocker, but you got to involve Kittle. You got to involve Mason. I think those are some things that, for whatever reason, Shanahan doesn't trust Mason. I don't understand it. He scored a touchdown. He had 5 carries, over 5 yards a carry. Give the man the ball, especially when Purdy's not on the mark today. Like we saw it. He wasn't on the mark, so let's try to run the ball. But not involving Kittle was just criminal, absolutely. Kelts, if you had a miscue that stood out to you, Feel free, man.
Man, it was just all over the place, man. You know, like I said, just the overall thoughts. But hey, the rain, even and I don't care if it's a sprinkle, I don't care if it's a monsoon. If the ball is wet, it could not even be sprinkling. Let's say there's just a lot of moisture. Let's say the field is just wet. If the ball is wet, it's going to affect someone like Purdy
Yeah.
more than the average quarterback because I mean I think he has smaller hands. You know, he's a smaller statured quarterback. We've seen it affect. It was barely raining versus the Seattle Seahawks, and we seen him overthrow quite a bit in that first half of the playoff game. We seen the ball slip out. I was thinking to myself, man, I wonder if he's going to put a glove on. And I don't care what you got to do. You know, put some stickum, gloves, whatever the hell you got to do to get the job done. And we talked about it in quite a bit on the last show, and it was a factor. I think that is why he was off. You know, they showed it. They showed another throw where it was wobbling, and you know whether it's even cold weather can make a ball slicker. It doesn't just necessarily have to be a monsoon, and it's not an excuse. It just is what it is. It affected what he does, the wind and the rain, whatever. And so I think they should have. I think Shanahan just could have been more on point. Be more on point when a Debo does go down or a CMC does go down. You know, maybe not. You know, maybe integrate what you would do. And I know Ray had some miscues, and then it all of a sudden it all kind of starts snowballing. Whenever a little pressure hit, it just feels like it kind of snowballs on
Fill
Kyle
me in. What did
Shanahan.
Ray do?
He lined up. He lined up
timing.
wrong.
It was just
I-
timing. It just feels like coming in and out of, you know, just timing. Just even getting in and out of the huddles, being in the right positions, motioning,
That's
even
right.
if it's
I
a
did
second
see him.
late.
He was in the wrong spot one time. Yeah.
And he ran into Trent.
Because you know how Shanahan is. If something's a second off, or even if it's not a delay game, but it's getting close, he's starting to get pissed. He's starting to kind of get tense. And then it feels like it's easy to snowball good and bad for Shanahan. You know, we've yet to really see it with Purdy, if that's the same with Purdy. But with Shanahan, if things are clicking, it's easy for it to just keep on clicking. If things kind of start falling off a little bit, it's easy for shit to hit the fan just a little bit harder. You know what
That's
I'm
a
saying?
great point. You're on the money.
So just with the shifts, but it's like, okay, if you do got to bring Ray back in, if you do got to bring Mason back in, have something already set up to where it doesn't just need to go vanilla, you know, or already have them on point and primed up to where you already know what you're going to do if those injuries do hit. And I know it's not, you can't get all the guys the same amount of reps the way you want to for if those things happen, but yeah, though just little details of miscues, just a little rain, and of course the freaking referees. I mean, like Jesus Christ, they might have been the biggest miscue. Like real talk, man. You know, we know the three big plays: the fumble, the Mooney Ward, and it's not just because we're fans. Hey, the one where Gibson hit him, that one's a little bit harder because he did look defenseless, but the hit was legit. So
Yeah.
it's like, come on, in that important of a game, really, man. It's like we just made a phenomenal play just for them to be rewarded and go and win the game, basically, you know. So it was just you know, and then Purdy was off. I already mentioned that. BA, that was a little uncharacteristic, you know, missing that deep ball for sure. Any one of those things could have changed the game. We were right there to win it. Obviously, the missed field goal. Yeah, man.
What I saw, this was like the perfect storm of unfortunate events. That's what led to this loss, right? You know, the bad calls, that's one thing. You know, Purdy having a bad game, that's two. All the penalties, that's three. You know, there was just so many things had to go wrong for the Niners for them to lose this game, and they happened. You know, Moody had to miss the game-winning kick. Just so many things had to go wrong, and that's what happened. You know, PJ Walker made a few plays. It felt like anytime the Browns desperately needed a play, they went to Amari Cooper, and Amari Cooper showed up. and made that play, right? Down the sideline on Charvarius Ward. I think he went down the left sideline on Diamador Lenore, for chunk plays. They didn't have much going on offense through the passing game when we're talking about PJ Walker and these Browns, but they just did just enough with Cooper making some plays down the sideline. And, the run game for the Browns was efficient. I think they averaged like 4.7 yards per carry, which isn't great, but usually the Niners are holding running backs to like around 3 yards a carry.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we allowed just to interject, we allowed 160 total rushing yards. And I think in the first few games throughout the regular season, we only allowed like 60. So it's a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, that absolutely was a big difference. And it was a perfect storm of unfortunate events that's what led to this loss.
Absolutely. Hey,
Well
some other
said.
miscues that I noticed. I thought BA, the Ayuk show, obviously, one of his worst games. I think it kind of started off, and I mentioned earlier, like the pregame brawl. Like you're going in someone else's stadium, and then you bump into a player, and then there's a pregame scuffle. I think I don't know, just a respect thing. You just don't do that.
One thing that I did notice though, like look how close it was to the 49er sideline. I mean, it's all the way basically. Like if the Niner players were just standing there, like
I don't. It seemed like they initiated the contact. It seemed like the Niners initiated it, and the Browns were on the receiving end of it.
I'm just curious to why are they even all the way?
Yeah.
I mean, they're it's not even on the green. It ain't even they're all the way pushed up to where we are. You feel me?
Yeah.
Like so. Did we really initiate it? We only seen what the
video.
Exactly.
I mean, according to the video, Debo went up and initiated contact. Ayuk was kind of defending him. Then Debo hit someone else. Then the big silverback comes through, and looks out for his guys.
Hey,
what's good, Amin? How you doing?
What's up,
I'm
Amin?
good, bro. I'm good.
Hey, that did remind me of like I don't know if you guys ever watch like any kind of animal stuff, but typically it just reminded me of a lion. It reminded me of like a whole bunch of hyenas like going after the smaller whatever lion, and here comes Big Daddy running up, and they just straight. Hey, but that was pretty good by Trent right there. He was rolling through like, nah, not today, today, not on my watch.
I want to get your thoughts on some things, Amin, but first I gotta say, what's good? We have Avatar in the building. We got the Vermilion Sports Report. Bryant, David, another David Villa. We appreciate everyone tuning in. We got G12 in the building. Appreciate everyone tuning in to the stream. But we were talking about the miscues in the game yesterday versus the Browns. Clearly, there was plenty of blame to go around. There are a lot of things that didn't go in the Niners' favor. So what stood out to you as far as the Niners' miscues?
I mean, overall, obviously, wasn't a clean game. Defensively, offensively, just overall, it wasn't a pretty game. And Kyle Shanahan summed it up pretty well when he said, when you make that many mistakes, I mean, it's really hard to win football games when you make that many mistakes. Jake Moody, obviously, with the missed kick, that sucked. Reminded me of 2019 when we were also undefeated Monday Night Football. We make that huge comeback against Seattle. And I think it was I'm like messing up his name. But then he misses the kick and we lose that game. Undefeated record. We lose a game where I think we were like 8-1 at that point. But obviously it sucked. Purdy probably played his worst game, but even in his worst game, he still gave the team an opportunity and had his Jimmy moment in a way, because that's what Jimmy was really good at. 2-minute drill, game on the line. Most of the time, Jimmy could, move the ball down the field, and the Niners would be able to be set up in field goal position, and Brock Purdy put his team in a position to win. But obviously, like Shanahan said, when you make that many mistakes, it's really hard to win. And at the same time, I don't really feel like it's all in the Niners' fault. I felt like the refs had some really bad calls on both sides. The Deshaun Gibson, I don't know what the hell that was. That Deshaun Gibson penalty at the end of the game, I think that really hurt the Niners. But overall, sloppy game from the refs, sloppy game offensively, sloppy game defensively. It wasn't pretty.
Also, just some stats that stood out to me. The Niners only 3 of 12 on third down conversions. That's just not going to get it done. There's no way you can continue to sustain drives when you're not converting on third down. So that's something that's definitely got to improve. And of course, the penalties. We also lost time of possession. Usually, that's something that we win, pretty easily. But that's something that didn't happen. Were there any other miscues from the panel, from the chat that stood out before we move on to the next topic?
Man, hey, like Bay Area said, man, just a perfect storm and all the wrong stuff. It's like it's a trip, man. Just 2 weeks ago, we see Brock Purdy 20 of 21, almost throw like a perfect game, and then we see us blow out the Cowboy. It's just the perfect storm. I think one major thing that's, like I said, it's not really being talked about is the 3 home games, and then you go on the road, and it can happen. I see that stuff happen to a lot of teams. Be at home for a while, go on the road, or vice versa. You're on the road for a while, you come home. Just that little switch up. Sometimes it could get you, and it was a perfect storm of just everything going wrong. We could call all 10 things out, and then what a trip, man. PJ, and hey, you know what? I might as well do it because I know at some point it's going to happen. And then we see the Eagles lose to freaking Zach Wilson. Like holy cow. We lose to PJ Walker.
I'm back on the bandwagon. Zach is back, baby. Zach is back.
Wow.
And now it's making me think of the mustache. The mustache is gone, man. Just soon as we started hyping it all up, we thought it was gonna grow to the floor.
I just realized Baller cut off the mustache.
The magic mustache is gone.
Within 5 minutes of that missed kick, that mustache was gone.
Done. He took it all out on the mustache. Oh man. It was the
I felt this game was weird. The trend all season was Brock Purdy is stout under pressure. He's still able to, stay in the pocket, deliver those throws. It doesn't matter if someone's in his face. And in this game, he still stood in the pocket, but he just wasn't accurate on his throws. I think the 49ers interior offensive line kind of got, I wouldn't say they got mollywopped, but they kind of got thrown around a little bit. The big man in the middle.
How many sacks they get?
They didn't get, I think they only had like maybe one. I think they only had one, but it seemed like, from my couch, Purdy was just running for his life. They were blitzing a lot, especially in the second half, and just Purdy was always on the run. Now, what I thought the Shanahan should have done was get Purdy into more.
Three sacks? 3 sacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought Shanahan should have had Purdy do more play action rollouts to kind of get him away from the blitz. It seemed like he did that. I could count on maybe one hand the amount of times he did that with Purdy, and he was able to deliver accurate throws. He wasn't confined in that pocket where it wasn't a secure pocket. I felt like this wasn't the best game from an interior offensive line standpoint. And then you got Trent Williams. Hey, a great effort. But obviously he's not 100% with the foot. So I just thought we got to definitely be better O-line up the middle if we expect Purdy to, be able to play well consistently.
I mean, even if this was hypothetically, and I think this is Purdy's probably worst game we've seen him in a 49ers uniform, but Ayuk had some passes. He got targeted 10 times in the game, and he only ended up catching 4. And there was some times where Purdy would be under pressure and he would be under duress, but he would buy time. And there's that one deep pass where he did hit Ayuk, and Ayuk just straight up dropped it. And it wasn't even like he dropped a couple, right? So in the instances where it wasn't Purdy's cleanest game by far, he only threw 1 interception, which I still feel like is relatively good, especially if you look at what Jalen Hurts did a couple of hours later with 3. I don't really feel like we solely lost the game just because of Brock Purdy. It obviously wasn't his best game, but Brock Purdy definitely gave guys opportunities to make plays, and they just didn't. Guys were dropping passes, and when you get targeted 10 times, and Brandon Ayuk gets targeted 10 times, he only ends up catching 4, and some of them could have been touchdown plays. And there was some where Brock Purdy kind of overshot guys like Brandon Ayuk a couple of times. CMC. He overshot a couple of guys, but sometimes guys just got to come down with it. Even at the end of the game, Juwan Jennings had that nice catch, but even before that catch that he caught, he was like wide open and he straight up dropped it. And I'm like, all right, dude. Like, so guys just weren't making plays. And overall, it was just a sloppy game. But even regardless of that, for Brock Purdy to go out there and still only have one turnover, even though the offense really wasn't going, I don't really think you could only put that all on Brock Purdy. But to still only throw one interception, where you look at Jalen Hurts threw 3, like I still trust Brock Purdy's decision making as a quarterback, even regardless of this one bad game. I just feel like he obviously didn't have his best game, but when he did give receivers opportunities to go make plays on the ball, they just didn't. They just ended up dropping them.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Well said. And Kelts mentioned that maybe the Niners got just used to the home cooking, being at home at Levi Stadium. I would even say maybe the 49ers didn't take this game as seriously as they should have. Maybe, hey, Deshaun Watson out. We're going up against XFL Hall of Fame player and PJ Walker. You know, maybe that was something that maybe was in the back of their mind. But like I said before, last week I was like, man, I want the Niners to be in a close game. I don't want, hey, maybe I jinxed the Niners. Maybe you can blame me. Maybe I did.
Yeah,
but
just don't say that during playoff time, please. Don't say that during playoff time. Like at this point.
I wanted to see. You have to see someone struggle to see what they're made of, and we found out what the Niners were made of. We didn't come out with the win. We struggled in several areas. Purdy had us in. Yeah, we could have won the game if Moody would have did his job, but hey, at least we see it now and not in the postseason. So
I would like to see CMC not play a couple of games. You just never know in the playoffs, man. And what if we don't have a CM? What if we don't have one of these guys? I want to see this team be able to be capable, because we have become so dependent on CMC the past, 15 games.
Yeah.
Let's see, a little comfortability.
What if that means that you take yourself out of the running for the bye?
Number 1 seed.
Oh yeah, no. Hell
McCaffrey's
no.
Obviously, we know how supremely talented he is, but when he says he's ready, I'm inserting him back in that lineup because I want this guy. I want that 1 seed. As nice as it is, excuse me, as nice as it would be to, hey, McCaffrey, hey, take a couple weeks off. Let's get you a hunt. That's not how McCaffrey's wired, but also I want that 1 seed. So when he's ready to go, it's the CMC show. But what I will say, Kelts, is let's scale back some of these touches. I know we've talked about it, right? Yeah. But it's like, hey, JP Mason, he looked good. He's decisive. He's running hard. Does McCaffrey need to touch the ball 25 times a game? Like maybe that's where but when he's ready to go, he's on the field.
I've been hearing. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jay.
I'm just gonna say I've been hearing this a lot about CMC's usage, but what's the perfect number? Like if we go down his list of carries that he's had, this regular season, I just had it up. So it's against the Steelers, 22 carries, Rams 20 carries, Giants 18 carries, Cardinals 20 carries, Cowboys 19 carries. Browns 11 carries. Also, he added in 27 catches over that time. So what's that number that he shouldn't go above? And as E mentioned, he's not wired like that. Man, CMC's best, I think one of the best NFL running backs on the planet. He wants those carries. He wants to be the focal point of the offense. So can he still do that if he's getting 10 to 12 touches, 15 touches? But I keep hearing that.
Take him out, but you take him out around the 50-yard line. When the Niners get the ball close to that 50, that's what I see a lot of teams do in the league. When they get to around the 50, they bring in the backup, for 3 or 4 plays. Yeah. And then as soon as they get closer to that goal line, they're putting their horse back in. Whereas we just constantly keep McCaffrey out there. Yeah. So that would be my answer. So that'd probably scale it back, So I think anything over 20 carries is a lot. I think 15 to 18 carries, with 3 or 4 targets, that's the sweet spot in my opinion.
I see other teams also every other drive. The one drive they'll use one running back, the next drive, you use the other one. But yeah, mix it up. I mean, Mason is too talented and too not just talented, man. He's got that dog on top of it. So I don't know if it's I don't know. I don't know why you wouldn't. I could see if it was so far apart, like if it was just like we had CMC and then we just basically had nobody. I could see why you wouldn't. You know what I'm saying? But when you do have someone like Mason, why
Exactly.
not? Why not? And then you want to kind of keep him sharpened, right? You want to keep him, you know, especially early in the season. It kind of, I get it. You want to make sure you win every game. You know, you want that number 1 seed. I don't know. It's hard. I wouldn't know the reasonable number, I guess, because you know, it all depends on CMC. Like where is CMC's gas tank? You know, we could say it's hard. I'll just say that. It's hard to really gauge it all. I guess CMC would know better than anybody, but hey man, hopefully it's nothing serious and you know, it is what it is.
I don't really think it's a specific number. I just feel like it's based on scenario, right? And it's not necessarily like that 15 to 20 carries for CMC. You obviously, he's your lead back. You gave up draft picks to go out and get him. And we obviously knew Shanahan, even going back to last season, utilized CMC in a huge way. So obviously going into this year, I didn't really expect anything different. But it just depends on the scenario. Before we even had CMC, we had Elijah Mitchell. And obviously we didn't really see much of Jordan Mason. We just heard some talks about him in training camp and things like that. But even before CMC got here, Elijah Mitchell was a serviceable back. He had some really good games for us, and he was really productive for us. And even looking at this season, so is Jordan Mason. So it's not necessarily about the number of touches that he gets. It depends on the scenario, right? If you're in a third down scenario, you don't need CMC in the game. Why not bring in a Jordan Mason who could pick up that 3rd and 2 or a 3rd and 1 because he's a more physical, stronger back than a CMC. And this might be a little bit of a bad example, but the way that I feel like the team that does it really, really well is the Detroit Lions and how they use Montgomery and how they use Gibbs. And obviously Gibbs is a rookie, and as a fantasy owner, it definitely sucks, but Christian McCaffrey is that guy who you could use him, he's obviously special, but Jordan Mason is your David Montgomery in a way, and you could utilize him in that way in a third and goal. You don't need CMC on the field on a 3rd down and things like that. So it's not necessarily the number of touches; it's just a scenario. Even going back to early on when we were winning, like we were winning by 20 or like 15, and then CMC is still in the game, and it's like the 3rd quarter. I'm like, Kyle, get him out the game, and I get it. CMC is a competitor; he wants to be in the game, but I'm at the same time, obviously everybody wants everything, but at the same time, sometimes, you also as a coach has to know what's right and best for your player. And if CMC gets hurt, right, like, and we've seen it before in the past where Niners players have played in like meaningless snaps and they got hurt. I think Mosley also got hurt. I'm not sure exactly, but we've seen it in the past where guys have gotten hurt playing meaningless snaps and games that the Niners have won and have been up by like 15, and double-digit points. So if you are in a scenario like that, you don't need a CMC in the game. It's just unnecessary, especially with CMC's injury history. You don't need to put him in the game. Get Mitchell touches, get Mason touches. They're more than serviceable in this backfield. We've seen it last year, even before CMC was on the team. So it's not necessarily the amount of touches. It's just depending on the scenario, you could use your other backs because your other backs are more than capable of filling in that role or filling in that spot if CMC is not playing or if he's on the sideline for that particular scenario.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. I think in a perfect scenario, Shanahan would use CMC enough to the point where he doesn't get hurt. But obviously, we have no idea when that's going to happen. I just think CMC is the best running back in the NFL. You got to have him on the field. Obviously, we don't like injuries. They happen. Look what happened yesterday. But I agree. I think we should use JP Mason more. But Shanahan, for whatever reason, he's stick-headed about that. He does not want to use him unless it's absolutely necessary. But I think he's going to have to. He's going to have to limit CMC's touches because this isn't a sprint; it's a marathon. He definitely has to limit his touches as the season goes on because we plan to play in the playoffs. So
yeah, man, this is Super Bowl year, man. Hey, You know, it was Naylor earlier who said, you know, he's seen, you know, to where he's seen where it looked like CMC was the one calling the shot. And, you know, there should be no player calling any shot. You know, I don't care who you are, how you are. I mean, of course, you know, you get Steph Curry's once in a generation, and they might be able to say certain things after winning, you know, 4 championships. But, you know, it comes to a point in time where the pride's got to be put aside. And I know you want this all pro season and to be a part of history or whatever it is, and you're that much of a competitor, but everybody's got to be told at some point in time when it's something greater than just yourself. When this is a team, it's a team sport, it's a team game where a team that is ready to win it all, man. There can't be any, and that brings me back to the point you made about the little scuffle in the beginning. Regardless of who fault it was, I don't want to see no scuffles, even though I do enjoy to see it. Me personally, I love to see it. But if I'm taking me out of it, drama out of it, looking at it from Super Bowl status, I don't want to see no scuffles. I don't want to see no bullcrap drama. I don't want to see no pride. None of that, you know, let natural adversity come, you know, but when you're doing those things, you can avoid, you know, pushing and fighting. You can avoid your pride and say, hey, you know what? You know, what's really the difference, CMC, of 1,500 yards and 1,700 yards, whatever it is you get? You know, is there really? I mean, you're not going to break no records this year. You know, you're not going to run for 2,000 yards. And if he does, I hope he does now just because I said it. I hope I jinxed that in a reverse way. But yeah, man, you got to put everything down, man. You can still have that full dog in you and still know when it's time to do what's best for the team.
I like what Roberto said. We definitely have to give Cleveland credit. They were coming off of a bye, inclement weather. They had 10 days to plan their defense on extra rest. And does anyone know Kyle Shanahan's record versus defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz? Does anyone know?
So what, 1-8?
1-9.
1-9.
1-9.
Terrible.
Whoa.
So I tried to look up which games those were. I know we played Detroit. I don't think Jim Schwartz was there though when Shanahan played him, but that's I mean, I didn't know he's in his head. Clearly,
that's Shanahan's kryptonite. Shanahan's kryptonite.
Got him. Hey, that's the same Jim from Harbaugh.
When Harbaugh and Jim Schwartz went at it.
Gave the good slap on the back. Jim Harbaugh kind of gave him the good old slap push. Like, oh, I freaking love Harbaugh.
So we talked about
he punked Jim Schwartz so bad in that scenario. Like, I think Schwartz is still butthurt from that moment.
Bro,
he'll never forget that. That was his last head coaching job. I think he only had one, I believe. So, we talked about the miscues, what went wrong for the Niners. We got to talk at least about who stood out. I mean, there were some positives from this game that we could take away from. And I would love to hear the chat. Anyone, offense, defense, special teams, who stood out in a positive way in the game yesterday. Let's start off with, the Dream. Who do you feel stood out in a positive way for our San Francisco 49ers?
That's honestly a really tough question because yesterday all I was thinking of was the negatives. I'm like, I'm about to come on the stream and just start.
You got to bring some positivity.
I was literally thinking last week we were all positive, no negatives, and this week is like the complete opposite. All because Jay in the Bay said, I want the 49ers team to weather the storm this week.
Hey, we got to see what they made of, man.
And
I mean,
and we talked about the how healthy the Niners had been.
Yeah,
and that was not good.
Hey, still no catastrophic, man. Hey, if it's not nothing catastrophic, man, we're still, as long as we avoid that, man. As long as we.
My question is, my question would be like, what's Kyle doing different? Because before in the past couple of years, like guys would get hurt in training camp sitting on chairs, and now it's like, I mean, we don't have guys getting injured, and even if they are, they're just banged up.
Jimmy's gone.
gone.
They just see Jimmy get, a little injury, and it just becomes a mental thing, and then the
Jimmy,
mental
okay.
thing becomes it just starts, it's the ripple effect. It's that butterfly situation.
All right. Well, my standout for this game would be Randy Gregory. I mean, people in the chat kind of helped me out because I remember Randy Gregory and what he was able to do yesterday. But I mean, he was probably the one bright spot of that defensive line yesterday. Had a couple of pressures, had that sack. Yeah, Randy Gregory would be my pick. And then this might be a little bit of a sleeper, but another guy would be Nick Bosa because obviously he's been having a little bit of a down season. He hasn't been putting up the numbers, but at the same time, one thing I do know about Nick Bosa is when you need Nick Bosa to make a play, he'll make the play. And that's one thing that Nick Bosa does. He's been doing it since his entire time being a 49er, is that when you need that play, when you need that sack on third down, Nick Bosa's there time and time again. He's the one that steps up to the plate and makes the play. So yesterday, Nick Bosa, that key sack on third down, definitely helped the team out. So Nick Bosa, finally, another sack. I mean, Nick Bosa.
Man, he came in. Didn't he come in unblocked?
Both of them.
Yeah.
Both of them untouched. I know.
I mean, it's on the stat sheet.
But still.
Yeah. So those two guys probably.
Hey man, he wants the highest paid non-QB money. He need to be putting up sacks, man. I'm thinking at least.
I mean, I remember I saw it yesterday on Twitter. Nick Bosa after signing that contract.
Man, come on, Bosa.
Nick Bosa after signing the contract, and it was a picture of Solomon Thomas, and I was like, no, like.
So anyone else saw a player that stood out? Feel free. Don't.
And there's a few. Hey, there's a few. I immediately want to point to the two interceptions. I'm gonna just how bad Fred Warner wants it, but I'm gonna pick someone that I don't think anybody's gonna pick, and that's mother freaking Mitch Wisnowski, man. Ooh. I mean, what a freaking 6 punts. I mean, 314 yards punting, bro. That's got to be a high for the season. 314. I thought I was looking at quarterback stats for a minute. Freaking 52 yards a punt. 2 inside the 20. He had a 60-yard punt. Like, what a game, Mitch Wisnowski. I can't say the same for Jake Moody, but Mitch was. I know it's kind of funny, but hey, man, he took advantage of all 6 of his opportunities. It sucks, but that just goes to show what kind of game it was. I could mention, I believe Givens, was it this game? Maybe it could have even been the Dallas game where Givens did some work. Gregory, like Amin said, you like to see Lenore get that pick. That was nice. Mason did his thing. So, I'll just stick with Mitch on this one. Well deserved by Mitch in this type of a game.
Yeah, you guys named the standouts, but I'm going to kind of recap on them. For Randy Gregory, I thought he was exceptional in his limited snaps, and just like his size and his burst and the strength that he plays at. I'm really excited about this Randy Gregory signing. Correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, but I think this is the best defensive end we've had opposite Bosa since like D Ford was right. Like I think Randy Gregory will end up being better than Ebukam. He'll end up better than Omenahu, and I'm really excited about this Randy Gregory signing. What's that I mean?
Who's D Ford? Was he a 49er?
D Ford's a guy I think the Niners are still paying D Ford. So Jed York knows who D Ford is.
I remember he was on the Chiefs. Did he play?
He's still cutting the check for D Ford.
Yeah, hey, he was solid that first year.
He was. He honestly was, but man, he would get injured way too much.
Are we still paying him? Are we still paying D Ford?
Yeah, we might be still paying him.
And
then I want to talk about Fred Warner, because when you hear about 5-tool players, usually that's referred to in baseball, but Fred Warner is a 5-tool linebacker, and that means that he can play the run downhill, he can go sideline to sideline. In coverage, he's the best linebacker ever of all time. is
Come on.
what I would argue. You can blitz him, and he forces turnovers. So Fred Warner, he's a 5-tool linebacker. You saw him yesterday. He jumped the route. He got the pick, ran with it. And the Niners didn't get any points after that interception. Like, he caught it, ran with it, and then the Niners proceeded to go
God,
backwards.
he wanted to score. Damn, PJ
and
Walker.
make it-
Hey, PJ Walker put up a hell of an effort because we hear the 49er defense. We want to score that. And when he got that one back to back, like, the first thing I thought in my head is he wants to score this bad. And PJ Walker fought for his life on that tackle. But my bad, baller. I had to throw that.
No,
I want to
no,
talk
you had
more
to.
about Fred Warner as well, but hit it, man.
Yeah, no, that was all I had on Fred. I mean, he's the best linebacker in the game right now, in my
And
opinion.
I keep hearing this thing. I feel like it's almost to just uplift Greenlaw. You have to maybe say something isn't as great for Fred Warner, but I've heard quite a few times like, hey, Greenlaw is that dog. He will punch you in the mouth. He'll you know, he's just ferocious, right?
They missed him yesterday,
Oh yeah,
big
absolutely,
time.
absolutely.
Whoa, they missed
But I
Greenlaw
think
out there.
just because Greenlaw is that ferocious beast, like, I feel like some people almost, when they try to bring up Greenlaw, they're gonna say that Fred isn't as much like that. I
That's
think,
physical.
Fred Warner is equally just a beast like that. I think he's a little more calculated on maybe not wanting to get penalties, but I think he is the dog. I don't. Oh, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say just because Greenlaw is this much of a dog doesn't mean that you have to say that Fred Warner is this much of a dog. But he's better in all the other areas. Hey, that I think they're equally just beast. You know what I'm saying? And of course, Fred is a little bit better in other areas, especially coverage. But that doesn't diminish what Fred is when it comes to smashing on folks and his intensity and his dogism, or maybe that's a new word. But man, hey, you know what? I've said it every other stream. Maybe 2 or 3 streams ago, I said, CMC and Fred Warner, we're watching potential Hall of Famers right here. And I know we got a couple other ones, but it's a pleasure to watch Fred Warner. Real talk.
Do y'all think? See, I haven't really gotten to see Willis and Bowman in their prime, but do you guys think that Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw have the potential to be better than those two guys?
I think it's too early. I think it's too early, honestly. But
do they have the potential to be better?
I think it's different. All right. So the game has evolved, right? So the linebackers have gotten a little smaller. All right. It's different times, different flavors, different eras. There needs to be more. Man, Patrick Willis was really freaking good. They were just a little bit bigger back in those days. Patrick Willis was fast. He was a straight monster. I think they definitely got the potential. Well, once it's all said and done, I was heartbroken when Patrick Willis stopped playing football. That sucked. I wish we could have seen more of it. Man, we're blessed to have this kind of group of linebackers from back then and right now, because I think they could definitely get there. And it would be hard to say that they're better. It just, they would still have to put together a few more good years. But what do you guys think about it?
I think at their peak, from what we've seen, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, their peak, and then Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman. Speaking of which, I got the P. Willie shirt on right now. But I think at their peaks, give me the old school, right? But I feel like this linebacker core is going to last longer in terms of Fred Warner and Dre. Like, the longevity is going to be better for these guys. Here's how I think is a better way of wording it. I think Fred Warner and P. Willis are they were both the best linebackers, at their perspective time in the NFL. And I would say Navarro Bowman is just a tad bit better than Dre Greenlaw. Hold up. I got to make my point. I think Navarro Bowman is just a tad bit better than Dre Greenlaw. So I would say right now, they haven't surpassed that former linebacker core, but not saying they can't get there, because they can. It's really close, but I think the edge of Navarro being a little better than Dre Greenlaw, I think, just kind of maybe in coverage or even I mean, Navarro Bowman before he got injured was just freaking spectacular. But
Yeah.
what's up? I mean,
All right. Didn't Ray Lewis play at the same time that Patrick Willis did?
Ray Lewis was a few
Or
years
was that
like,
his back
older.
end of his career?
He's
Was that
older.
in the
Yeah,
back
that
end?
was the back end
Willis
of his
was probably
career.
in the
Okay,
back
okay,
end
okay.
of Ray Lewis' career.
Because there was other guys that were out there in Patrick Willis this time, and obviously Bowman. There was Ray Lewis, but I think Ray Lewis, right? Like he was at the end of his,
Oh, the
time,
torch was
but-
passed. The
yeah.
torch
But
was
Fred
passed
Warner,
for.
Fred Warner, at least watching football now, heavily Fred Warner is like there's no debate. Fred Warner is the best in the league.
It's just different. It's funny how it's or it's not funny. It's just it's evolved
It's a different
in a
game.
different direction. You know, they were able to hit a little bit more back then. It makes me want to see Greenlaw and Warner back in the older days to see if Warner would, just like, take his head out of it a little bit more and just smash on folks, because that's what Patrick Willis was doing, man. And Goldston, Hittner, just that whole 2012 squad was pretty ferocious, man.
For me, I think it's way too early to even make that comparison. I know it's an easy comparison to make, but like Patrick Willis was like a first round pick. Went to like 8-9 straight Pro Bowls. He was all pro. Bowman was all pro as well. I just think I'm not gonna say they're not in the same class, but I just feel like Warner and Greenlaw got to put more years together as a Pro Bowl tandem and get some all pros. But there's no doubt those are the two best linebackers going after P. Willie and Bowman. There's no doubt about that. But no, I just think Willis and Bowman, the longevity is definitely on their side. As far as who stood out, I think the defense as a whole was good enough to win the game. You get 2 turnovers. You only allow 19 points. Like, I think we'll take that on any given Sunday. Oren Burks, he did. Before I go to Oren, I think I thought of the same thing that E said, that the team missed Greenlaw. Warner is physical, but I think Greenlaw, just from what I've seen, it's just on another level. He's willing to hit you out of bounds. He's willing to get that penalty, whereas Rich said Warner's not going to do that. He'll just push you out of bounds. He may hit you, but he's not going to go past that line usually. What I see in Greenlaw, I see in Huff, which is borderline dirty. If Huff was on another team and I saw what he did to the team I root for, I would say, oh, Huff is a dirty player, because he toasts that line and he sometimes passes it, but he hasn't really gotten penalized for it yet. I just want to mention Oren Burks. He led the team in total tackles. He had a huge tackle on Amari Cooper that prevented a touchdown, because I think if Oren Burks didn't catch up to him, I think Cooper could have went the distance. Was that cool? It might have been Marquise Goodwin. It was one of those two. I know Marquise Goodwin had like one. It was Goodwin. Yeah.
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned Burks.
Got Olympic speed. Goodwin's got Olympic speed. Kudos to Burks for not giving up on the play and continuing to go after Goodwin, because he could have took it to the house. Speaking on giving up plays, I don't know if you guys saw it, but what stood out to me was Brock threw that pick. Ayuk just stood there, just stood there, didn't even try to go after the guy who took the pick. Did anyone else notice that?
Quite a few times, even Debo or I see a little bit more where players are taking off if the ball ain't coming their way, or just, I mean, it can't be too hard. I know you want to have gas in the tank for the end of the game when it really matters, but it can't be too hard to run,
Right, exactly.
I mean, I know you're trying to conserve energy, but maybe that'll help you be in better shape if you're just selling, just kind of. But I didn't see that. I want to go back and see that, because I don't like that stuff, man. I don't like it. But
I'm trying to see when it happened. But I don't. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I have to get back to you on that. It might have been in the third quarter. He threw it behind Ayuk. Ayuk obviously was disappointed by the throw, but you at least got to run, show some type of effort to try to tackle, the defender with the ball. But so yeah, that's something I noticed.
I mean, because I could always just come back to hey, you're getting paid millions of dollars, man.
I just watched it. I just
you're doing
watched
a job.
And
Was
yeah,
it
the
good?
ball gets tipped up. Ayuk just kind of looks at him and just kind of hesitates, and then it looks like he thinks, "Oh wait, I should go get him." So
He's
I get what
already
you mean. It should
complaining.
be
He's
happening.
already
Other
he's
team
all
gets the ball, you should be wired. I gotta go
Right.
get him.
man,
Go
I
bring
gotta
the
go get
ball.
him.
There shouldn't be any kind of
Come on.
hesitation, which there was a split second of hesitation, but
Yeah.
I think it was just kind of it caught BA by surprise. I mean, Brock Purdy, first interception of the year. He's not used to,
Exactly.
if
Yeah,
it was
like,
Jimmy
oh, shit.
Garoppolo, like if it was a Raiders receiver, then it's like you see all these interceptions every week.
Yeah.
You would know, oh shoot, they caught the ball. I got to go tackle them. But I think BA
Right.
was just like,
Good
oh
point.
man, interception. Oh shoot, I got to go get him. So there was some hesitation, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because I feel like Ayuk, he hustles, he plays hard. So I think it was just kind of a split second mental lapse.
Good
That's
point,
fair.
Baller.
Yeah.
Good
When
point,
will
man.
we
fair.
stop bashing Jimmy G? I feel like Niners fans will continue
Never.
to bash Jimmy G
Oh my
until the end
God.
of time.
I feel
Ever.
so vindicated because I tried to tell people
Ever.
how mediocre and
Same.
just Jimmy Garoppolo was not good, and
Dude.
Shanahan was making him look better than he is. And
Jimmy
now
G
that-
lives in your mind rent free. Every show we do, we bring up number
That was-
10. He ain't on the squad no more.
That was the
every
whole argument. The whole argument was like, dude, watch, get someone a little bit better than Jimmy and watch. And
Yeah.
just
But it's still funny though. It doesn't it makes a difference when you're watching the game and when you look at this team. But in terms of the way that the media talks about Brock Purdy, still it's like it's ridiculous. And the funniest thing is, and what also irritates me the most is that when Jalen Hurts for this year has I think he has seven touchdowns and 8 interceptions, something like that, especially after last night. And Brock Purdy has 9 touchdowns and 1 interception this year. But when Jalen Hurts balls out, Jalen Hurts is MVP conversation. Jalen Hurts is freaking ridiculous. When Brock Purdy balls out, it's like, oh, it's Kyle Shanahan. It's the scheme. It's because they have Christian McCaffrey, Debo, and Ayuk, and they have George Kittle. Brock Purdy isn't that great. It's the scheme. It's the product of the system. And I'm like, how can you say it's a product of the system? Jimmy was a product of the system. You look at Brock Purdy, it's not a product of the system.
I seen Josh Allen last night, and I've never questioned Josh Allen, the physical specimen he is, making some freaking elite throws, throwing some great throws. And soon as the announcers are like, dude, just watch Josh Allen. I mean, they're just hyping just like it's the most amazing thing they ever seen. And then it was like a double clutch. It was like a key moment too. And then he just a slight double clutch and basically throws it in the dirt. And it's like, it's just like, you can make the spectacular throw, but if you ain't doing the dink and dunking properly, you ain't never going to have a chance to make that spectacular throw. It's like it all kind of comes back down to efficiency and clutch moments, in my opinion. And, I still think Josh Allen is a tremendous quarterback. Herbert tonight, absolutely amazing quarterback, has everything you would want. And you see him making some overthrows, like 2 or 3, exactly what Purdy did in the Rams game, maybe a little worse, or whatever. My point is that there's more to quarterback than spectacular plays. And I don't care if you make 5 spectacular plays, like win the game, be efficient. And, yeah, man, there's always going to be the talk. That's what makes it great, though. Sports, there's always going to be the opinions and debates, and everybody's got their flavor. Doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but it does suck to hear someone like Purdy not get talked about a certain way. It's like, I feel like that's been San Francisco in general for a long time. They always want to kind of, whether it's votes to Bosa or, it's that East Coast bias type shit. So it is what it is.
I mean, but
I just want to
go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say just about number 10, he's a polarizing figure. I mean, he's rich. Men want to be him. Women want to be with him. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why
we both did the same look.
You ain't got to lie. I mean, hey, the women think he's handsome. Even though he's an average quarterback, he's got money in the bank. I think that's part of the reason why. That's part of the reason. And just quickly on Purdy, by Purdy playing well, it proves everyone wrong who scouted the NFL draft. He's the last pick of the draft. He shouldn't be doing this. It's not Purdy. It's the system. It's not Purdy. It's the weapons. It's not Purdy. It's because of the defense. I just think the only way Purdy's going to get respect from the national media is he's got to win a Super Bowl. I think that's the only
true.
way.
That's honestly true, ball. That's honestly true. And no, but that's the thing though. What makes Purdy so elite, in my opinion, is that he's just such an elite processor of information.
Yeah.
Like the way that he processes things, the way that he's decisive about things, the way that when he does process a certain, like when he does see the field and he has to make a quick decision, he makes that quick decision and he also does it accurately and on time. Like the way that he's able to process information so well. And that's the thing, right? Like looking at what Jimmy Garoppolo did with Brock Purdy did, as a Niners fan that watches this team, you see the difference. But when you see like a Justin Herbert making a 85-yard, like or 75-yard pass down the field, like off his back foot, like that's obviously cool. Obviously that it'll get clipped. But at the same time, if you look at Justin Herbert's stat line, it might be like 14 for 30, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Where when you look at Brock Purdy, it might not be a 75-yard throw off his back foot or like a no-look pass. But at the same time, if you look at his stat line, it's like 21 for 23, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. It's a clean stat sheet. So what Purdy does so well is that he's an elite processor of information, which you can't really necessarily scout that, right? Where as a scout, you're looking at hand size. Like we talked about this last week, but like hand size, arm strength. Like I don't even understand why quarterbacks really have pro days. I feel like pro days honestly pro days are useless because like obviously we know every quarterback can throw. You see it in the games, but like what really makes the quarterback, I feel like in my personal opinion, what makes them good or bad is obviously how much you obviously want to win and how much you really love football. But can you process information quickly? And that's what Purdy has, right? It doesn't matter how far you could throw the ball. If you could throw it 75 yards on the field, that doesn't matter. It doesn't. So looking at Brock Purdy, like in coaches, there's been coaches that have also been saying it. That's what makes him so great is that he's an elite processor of information, and that's what we've seen from him so far.
Yeah, I feel like even if he did, it depends on how we would win a Super Bowl. I could see us winning the Super Bowl a certain way, and them still getting on Purdy. I feel like Purdy would have to play, with a couple less players in him to kind of, do it on not on his own because you're never going to do it on your own. But I think to get complete respect, I feel like they would want to see like Patrick Mahomes, for example. He isn't lighting up the stat sheet this year, but they are 5-1. You know what I'm saying? But they're still winning. They're still getting the job done. You know what I'm saying? I think for Purdy, without being the top pick and with his stature and all those things, I think the national media, and at the same time, who gives a damn about them? But I think the national media wouldn't unanimously give him the respect that we probably do until a couple years down the road with a lesser talent. That's just my opinion on it. But
Nah, I agree. I think Purdy's got the respect of the Niners fan base and the people in the building, Lynch and Shanahan. I think they believe in him. That's what's most important. But hey, Purdy I think he'll be a pivotal player for us going into the playoffs. And if we get to the Super Bowl, I don't think he'll be, what's the saying? He won't be riding the bus. I think he'll be driving the bus. So
hell yeah.
I think that's what he's proven so far, that he's not just like Amin said, yeah, he can process information.
He ain't the weakest link.
He ain't gonna be the weakest link. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's what
Jimmy felt like.
Again? Yeah, what's his number? I forgot his number, but never mind. That's what some people said about, the last guy who was here, that he's the weakest link and he's riding the bus, yada yada yada. So
no, but it's true though, Jay. It's true though, because if the Niners hypothetically won that Super Bowl against the Chiefs, it would be in spite of Jimmy Garoppolo. And even if hypothetically the Niners won that game, you would say in spite of Jimmy Garoppolo throwing those 2 interceptions, and if he hit Emmanuel Sanders, which would have been great. Now that might have been a different story if he hit Emmanuel Sanders, but because he didn't, and hypothetically if that game was close and it went into overtime or whatnot, right? We could play this hypothetical game, but still, Jimmy Garoppolo still threw 2 interceptions, still didn't have a good game, and look at the NFC Championship. The NFC Championship game literally shows you all you need to know about how much Kyle Shanahan trusted Jimmy Garoppolo. That he literally told Jimmy, throw the ball 7 times. Like, throw the ball as least as you can. Like, do not throw the football. We're trying to make a game plan around Raheem Mostert. Hopefully he could do his thing because we don't want you throwing the ball.
Ooh, Raheem Mostert, man. Hey, we
Hey,
haven't
I
seen
mean,
the best of him yet.
Miami.
Hey, I
You are
think
absolutely true, Amin. But the past is the past. We living in the present and looking forward to the future. So we ain't got to worry about, number 10 anymore. But should we get into the 49ers opponent next week, or is there any lasting thoughts, ideas you have about this game, or should we move on to the Niners' next opponent? Anything pressing? No?
yeah,
All
I
right.
think we
Shout
I think
out
we covered.
Demo. Kelt shouted him out, but I want to shout out Demo. I think he's been playing some good ball lately, and
And
he had the
he ain't afraid to
interception.
tackle.
Yep.
No, and that was a strength of his coming out of Oregon. Was
Yeah.
that this kid, he sticks his nose in there.
Yeah.
I love to mention it. The 49ers DBs, it's a requirement for them to stick their nose in the run game. All these guys do it. Ward, Demo, Oliver when he's in. That's a requirement, and I think Demo's playing really good ball. I wanted to shout him out. One thing I disagreed with you on, Jay, was I had thought that we did roll out Purdy a few times. I think it happened maybe like 3 times or 4 times.
Yeah.
And I noticed it was always rolling away from Garrett, which, okay, it makes sense. But when you do that, you're only getting half field reads. When you're rolling out, you're eliminating half the field. You're not going to throw it to one side. You're only looking at the side you're rolling out. I didn't think it was very effective, so I didn't like the rollouts. That was just one of my notes that I hadn't brought up.
I would say we rolled out, like you said. I think I said we rolled out a handful of times. Like I count on one hand in my time. I thought we should have did it more. Difference of opinion. That's what this show's all about. I thought we should have did it more to get away from the rush that was affecting Purdy. That's why I thought we should get away. We should do more play action rollouts and try to get Kittle going across the middle on the crossing route. And that's another thing. We got to get Kittle more involved. I mean, that was just that was ridiculous.
Absolutely. And to
Sarah,
kind of
everything
put a bow on it, this was not Shanahan's best game.
No,
Shanahan scheming up these receivers, BA's running with like 5 yards of separation all throughout the field. We didn't have that yesterday. And another thing I noticed is, the offensive line didn't perform very well. I got to dive in and watch the all 22 and figure out, who's blowing assignments or what exactly was happening there. But one thing you could watch just watching the TV copy is all the free rushers.
Right.
How many times were blitzers coming in untouched, getting in Brock Purdy's face?
Right.
It happened at least 3 times. Brock can make a guy miss, every once in a while and break the pocket and make a play, but it's a tough ask, to send multiple free rushers over and over at Brock Purdy and asking him, hey, find the open man in 0.5 seconds. He does sometimes, but it's a tough ask for him to do it consistently. Not Kyle Shanahan's best game plan.
Maybe I'm tripping, but one thing that Shanahan and even the defensive coordinators on this team have done really well is that they're able to make adjustments. And one thing I felt like just watching that game, it didn't really feel like there were many adjustments made. It just felt like they were coming out and doing the same thing, expecting a different result. And it really wasn't Kyle Shanahan's best game. Like you said, I kind of felt like Kyle Shanahan kind of was playing scared a little bit. Like it wasn't like Kyle Shanahan's normal aggressive style of we about to put up 30 on you. I felt like after even coming out in the second half, usually we see Shanahan make adjustments, or we see, Steve Wilks makes adjustments. In the past, we've seen D'Amico and those guys make adjustments. It just felt like there's kind of nothing that we did that, no adjustments, nothing really changed. And Kyle Shanahan kind of played a little bit of a afraid football. It was like the same thing. It wasn't like no aggressiveness, no dialing up anything. It was kind of, and one thing that we've seen from Shanahan in the past is that when he does, go up again, or when he does go up against, or when he does have big games or certain things like that, sometimes Kyle Shanahan's in his bag. He'll be dialing up stuff. My favorite game probably that Kyle Shanahan was straight up in his bag was the Saints game. Kyle Shanahan was drawing up pitches to Mostert. He was in his bag that game, and sometimes Shanahan is in his bag, and then sometimes like yesterday, And even like going back to the Dallas game, that touchdown pass to George Kittle on that little pitch reverse thing that they did. Like sometimes Shanahan is in his bag, and yesterday he just wasn't, and he kind of played a little bit afraid. And in a way, I felt like he didn't make adjustments. In a way, I felt like he just came out doing the same exact thing, expecting a different result where it really wasn't working.
It's something about that East Coast gloomy day where it just feels like everything just kind of isn't right. Like what all you guys are saying, just like there's some kind of PTSD. It's almost like you could feel the the kind of, because everything was off. It's like everything was off, all the way to the refs, to just every little detail, to the injuries, to the refs, to Kyle, to Purdy, to Ayuk, just things that everything that hasn't. But I'm kind of glad that all those things did happen, and then still we had a chance to win the game. It's like almost everything went against us, and we were still freaking right there. You just take half of those things, and we might be mollywopping this game. Might be a whole different discussion, but I'm kind of glad it did. And then for Purdy too, I do want to say Purdy, man, you know what? He did what he had to do in that final drive. He was still off a little bit in that final drive, but still, kind of he still did what he made a few throws to put them in position. I think they're going to get it all corrected. I think we're going to come back rejuvenated and maybe a little smarter. I think we're going to, and back to Kyle Shanahan, just I'm kind of glad he got that. Hopefully everybody got all this crap out of their system, and I'm sure we're going to lose again. I'm sure we're going to probably drop one more game. I wouldn't doubt it if it's one division game that we weren't expecting, or if it's to even someone like the Jags. You know what I'm saying? They're still, we definitely got an easier schedule than someone like the Eagles. The Eagles are about to be facing everybody. I feel like Kansas City, the Bills, us, a few other, Dallas. They might still have to play Dallas twice, but yeah, I feel like we got a lot of crap out of our system. Hopefully the refs don't have their hand in any more situations. You hate to, there's always the saying, hey, don't leave it up to injuries. Don't leave it up to the refs, and there was plenty that we can reflect and correct on to not leave it in the hands of anybody. And I think we're going to do that through the rest of the season. But don't be surprised to drop another one that we might not see coming in. What's up?
Before we might move on to that Minnesota game, am I the only one that misses the energy that Sala and D'Amico brought on the sideline? Like seeing Steve Wilkes up in the booth, all calm, like I don't know, like it's different. It's a little bit different because, like, remember, like Bosa would get a sack or Fred Warner would get a pick, and you see Sala and D'Amico's headphones flying off. They're high fiving dudes. Yeah, they be going crazy, headsets falling off, bringing that energy on the sideline, and Steve Wilkes is just sitting there up in the booth just watching. I'm like, man, where's that energy? Like, I miss that energy.
No,
who's our defensive line coach? Because I think he is over there doing it all the time.
Maybe
the cameras,
but they never show him. They don't show Kusarik on the sideline. They don't show him really. They only show Wilkes up in the booth. But I just want to mention, we win as a team, we lose as a team. Shanahan could call up the best play, but if Burford is holding someone, that play gets negated. If Trent Williams false starts, that play gets negated. The first time all year, it just felt like we kept shooting ourselves in the foot. Like every time we got positive yardage, it came back. Or as Bay Area Baller mentioned earlier, it's a 1st and 25, it's the 2nd and 22, and we're already without CMC and Debo. So it's like, it like Kelt said, it's a perfect storm. So but I'm glad we got this out of our system. We know what we need to work on. And hey, we play the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football prime time, and it's gonna be in Minnesota. And we know how Captain Kirk does in primetime games. Now, I think the Vikings, they are 0-3 at home. So hey, that bodes well for the 49ers. But I would love to hear from the chat, from the panel, give me one key victory for the 49ers and also leave in your score prediction. Let's go with Eric first.
Yeah, playing Minnesota, we know Justin Jefferson, he's going to be out. I don't think the running backs for the Vikings are any good. I don't think Alexander Madison's talented. Cam Akers, I don't think he's very good. The run game doesn't scare me. Kirk, I know Kirk, everyone loves to hate on Kirk Cousins. I actually like me some Kirk. I think he's a pretty good, I think he's a good quarterback. So you got to show respect to Kirk because he could. I know our defense is good, but he could carve you up for like 350. He throws for 300 yards, feels like relatively routinely. They got a rookie receiver, Jordan Addison, at a USC. He's really talented. I think he's the explosive guy who you're not going to want to make explosive plays. KJ Osborne is now back into the fold. He's a solid veteran receiver. But defensively, I want to run the rock on these guys. They're light up front. Like their D line, they don't got no big boys on the interior, at least not the starters. So my philosophy would be, hey, ground and pound, and that might be with Jordan Mason, right? We don't know if CMC's playing, but hey, even if CMC's out, game plan should be ground and pound, run it down their throat, because when you establish the run, that kind of opens things up. And I think that's what also kind of hurt us against the Browns, because after the first drive, McCaffrey was shut down on the ground. So let's get the run game back going, because that's going to open up the rest of the offense. As for my score prediction, I'm going to go. We're getting back to 30. I told you last week I did think the Niners are going to win, I thought the streak of the 30-point games might come to an end, and that did, unfortunately. But we're going to get back to it. 30 Purdy is going to show up. So I'm going to say it's going to be 33-17.
Okay.
I like it. Yeah, man, just to have fun with it, because y'all know me. If it's something real serious, I'll get real serious. But sometimes I like to have fun with it. And hey, we've heard a lot of Kirk Cousins talk for a long freaking time, and it's freaking Kyle Shanahan's buddy, and this, that, and the other, and Kirk this, and what if Kirk was here? He would have at least won 2 Super Bowls. But could y'all imagine if Kirk does ball out and Purdy doesn't have that good of a game? And whether we win or lose, and I know, hey, I'm a diehard 49er fan. If I were to tell y'all what I really think's going to happen, 33-13, all Kirk is going to curl
Kels,
up.
don't put it out there, Kels. You remember what Jay said last week? It
Hey,
happened. Don't speak it into existence,
man.
Kels.
Nah, man. Hey. Well, man, just to maybe humble, or just to make people on Twitter or whatever in the sports, the overreactions, I don't know, man. I'm turning into a little bit of a monster, especially in the midseason. I would like to see people flip out if Kirk had a stat line that looked all sexy and Purdy didn't, but we still come out with the victory, just to kind of, I don't know, man. Yeah, be a little troll about it, just to kind of sit back and, let's watch all these people. Let's see this grind everybody's gears or whatnot. I think it's hilarious sometimes when I see the overreactions. It gets irritating. Oh my God, we need to replace Moody right now. I just think that's one thing I've told you guys several times, man. That's one of the first things that I noticed when I did hop on social, was just like, holy crap, it flip-flops so quick from play to play, game to game. It blew my mind, bro. Like from, it just did, I mean, I don't want to give everybody all the time in the world, but you gotta the world just moves so quick nowadays. It's crazy to me. But I'll say 33-13, but it would be wild to see Kirk Cousins do really well and Brock on the stat line and even eye test not do as well. Because that's going to be a thing with 49ers, no matter whether we want to make it a thing or not, we're going to be gauging Kirk Cousins and Brock Purdy in this game. Or I know there's a lot of folks who will be doing that. So that's going to be interesting for, for a game that isn't very significant as far as records go. and positioning of, NFC West or just even seeding and stuff like that. That'll be a little intangible. I think a lot of people will be paying attention to.
Hey, what say you, Amin?
You're muted, bro.
I want you to hit it first, Jay.
Hey, no worries. Hey, so the Vikings, we know they got Captain Kirk. We know he's not a franchise quarterback, but he's definitely a quarterback that, hey, we need to respect. He's good. He can light you up. The Vikings are a top 5 passing team in the NFL so far this season. Hey, they're without Justin Jefferson, one of the best in the league, but they can still throw it. They are a one-dimensional offense. They only average about like 75 yards rushing per game. That's bottom 5 in the NFL. So I think it's going to be Captain Kirk. He's going to have to will this team to win. I don't think it's going to happen. We all know Kirk isn't very good in primetime games, and I think he's going to go up against a humbled 49ers team. Another away game in Minnesota, but I think we come and we beat Minnesota. Not with ease, but I think we will get a few turnovers on Captain Kirk. And I think if we allow only about 20 or so points, I think Brock Purdy and this offense will be much better against Minnesota. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I think the Niners will win this game. I'm going to say 31-14. I think we should win this game handedly. And I think we have to, unfortunately for the Vikings, they're going to feel the wrath of the Niners. I think we were humbled against PJ Walker and the Cleveland Browns. So I think the Niners will be well motivated in this game against the Vikings. And I think we're going to prove that on Monday night.
Yep. I got the Niners in a pretty comfortable victory. Obviously, last week that it was definitely a rough game, but I think this Niners team definitely got humbled. I think they're definitely going to come back and try to prove the naysayers wrong, and they definitely have a chip on their shoulder after this week. So I think they come out and they make Kirk's life a little bit miserable. And obviously we know Kirk Cousins isn't good on prime time. I think the Niners put up another 30 piece. I think the streak starts back up again. Another 30 piece. I go 31-13. Niners.
Hey, I dig it. Tile Rob says the Niners win 24-10. Steve-O says we're already 7-point favorites in Minnesota. The Smitty says the Niners should win 31-17. Hey, we appreciate everyone tuning in to the stream tonight, whether you're rocking out on Kelts Chronicles, Straight Out of the Bay, Jay in the Bay, Bay Area Baller, Amin the Dreams YouTube channel. We appreciate all the support. Everyone that was in the comments rocking out with us tonight, we appreciate it. Any last words before we wrap up? Outlook on the Vikings game, outlook on the season, just anything you want to leave with the viewers before we head on out. Let's start with
one major factor. I think it's just going to be the complete icebreaker for what happened, versus the Browns. Was that little bit of bad weather, man? We seen the throws from Purdy, and we're going to be going to a dome prime time. Just the fact of being in a dome. Because it feels like with Kyle, like I said earlier in the stream, if something's a little bit off, it could kind of start snowballing that way. If it's a little bit on, it could snowball. It's like there's kind of
almost a great point. I love that point that you said.
It's almost like there's no
true.
Middle. It doesn't it? It feels like there's
no. Sometimes it feels like the play call. I'm questioning the play call.
Sometimes I feel like I could give more opinions on people that I see that resemble. I feel like I'm a little bit like Kyle Shanahan, man. Maybe not as far as being accountable in front of public. I don't know, or I do know how I would act in that way. I'm just more of an all or nothing person, man. If I'm going to talk to you, man, I could tell a whole book. If I ain't going to talk to you, I'll probably look like the biggest dick in the world. It's just like pause. But the point I'm making, I get real high or I get real low, man. I'm getting better at getting to that middle place, and it feels beautiful when you do find that middle and all that stuff. But I'm very reminiscent of things that I do call out, because I've lived it or I've seen it or I've experienced it. I'm getting better at it, or maybe not, but it's like I kind of see that. It feels like if there's a little twig that gets thrown into the spokes, you could get thrown over the handlebars, So I see that with Shanahan, good and bad. It reminds me of live and die by the 3-pointer, It's, hey, keep shooting the shot though. But I feel like when that comfortability is there, like a dome versus Minnesota, it's a nice city, it's a nice place. So I feel like the 49ers are going to roll on Monday night. And peace out to everybody. Stay up, stay blessed. Yee.
This is my favorite part of the show where we get to hear a mean say "Bang Bang Niner Gang." That's like one of my highlights.
Before we get to Bang Bang Niner Gang,
Uh-huh.
well, you said 3-point. You said 3-pointer. Keep shooting that 3-pointer. I might be the only one, but like after Jake Moody's missed field goal, like I hope it doesn't. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan said, "Let's see how he bounces back." But one thing that Gold was always good at was when you needed him to make that game-winning field goal, he would always pull through. And probably one of my fears going into this postseason and this playoffs is, I said postseason like we were talking about baseball, but one of my biggest fears about the playoffs is, I don't want to lose a game like the Bears did a couple of years ago with a double doink. Like I don't want to lose a game where the Niners move down the field goal situation, and you end up missing the kick. Now, obviously, I think Jake Moody's more than a talented kicker. Obviously, I think he deserves an opportunity to bounce back. I just hope he's not in a situation where it is a playoff game or we are in games down the line and it comes down to a field goal and he ends up missing the field goal. And right now it's cool if you miss that, right? Because we're 5-1 and before this we were 5-0. Losing a game doesn't really matter, but playoff time, you lose a game, your season's over. So that's probably one of my biggest fears going into this playoffs. Is not really, I think this team is more than talented enough, especially with Purdy under center, to win the Super Bowl this year. I just hope it doesn't come down to a scenario where game on the line and Jake Moody misses a field goal, Niner season end that way, especially with how talented this team is. And now, we always end the show with a Bang Bang Niner Gang. So
Absolutely. And I just want to mention Purdy, Moody, Ayuk, Shanahan definitely got to redeem themselves. And I think we'll see that Minnesota. You got anything last, E?
Hey, fellas, love talking ball. Let's get back in the win column, and we'll do it again right after the Monday Night Football. We're going live. Catch us right here.
Yep.
Ooh, right after.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So,
yes, sir.
yeah, we'll be starting Great Point Baller Monday Night Football. Right after the game, or maybe even during the game if it's a blowout. Who knows? But yeah, come through next Monday night, 8 p.m. We'll be here, and we will faithful then, faithful now. We'll see y'all in the next one. Go Niners.
Yeah.
Yee! We getting it, boy.
What's good? You know who it is. It's your boy, Jay in the Bay.
Your baller back again. Smells like football season.
Yo!